introduction. And I want to thank the chairman for his invitation to be here today with all of you. It's also great to see your outstanding Republican legislative leaders who are fighting the good fight every day. Senator Huff's great to see you. Assemblywoman Olson, great to see you again. They are doing an extraordinary job in the legislature for our party here in California. I'm honored to be here today with all of you in the state where Ronald Reagan served as governor and in the city where he served the people of California. In the summer of 1980, I was 17 years old. And then Governor Reagan accepted the Republican nomination for President of the United States in Detroit. At the time, we had a faltering economy. We were being pushed around by the Soviets. America was in retreat around the world. And the people of this great country faced the very real possibility that the country they left to their children wouldn't be as free, wouldn't be as prosperous, as powerful, or as optimistic as the one they had inherited. I ask you a question. Does that scenario sound familiar 35 years later? Now, everyone was wondering how he would approach the very real and serious issues that were facing the country. Let me tell you what he said. Quote, "The major issue of this campaign is the direct political, personal, and moral responsibility of Democratic Party leadership in the White House and in Congress for this unprecedented calamity which has befallen us. They tell us they've done the most that humanly could be done. They say that the United States has had its day in the sun, that our nation has passed its zenith. They expect you to tell your children that the American people have the will, no longer have the will to cope with their problems, and the future will be one of sacrifice and few opportunities." And then he said, "My fellow citizens, I utterly reject that view." Not only great words, but you know what that sounds like to me? It sounds like the truth. It sounds like the words of a leader who is willing to tell hard truths to the American people. Those hard truths, unvarnished, rang true with the American people. Because remember, the conventional wisdom was that that election would be close. It wasn't. The American people had found their leader in the man that was speaking the truth. Ronald Reagan understood the resiliency of our people. He believed, just like I do today, that this country and its citizens can accomplish what is being asked of them. We are a country that has always risen to the challenge if we are asked. Right now, or at any other time in recent history, the people of this country need to be asked. Because we're the ones that pay a price whenever our economy fails to deliver rising living standards for our citizens. Americans at the middle ladder of our income now earn less, adjusted for inflation, than they did in the year 2000, 15 years ago. We pay a price. When our political system cannot come together and agree on the difficult but necessary steps to rein in entitlement spending and reform our tax system. We pay a price when the president uses a strong arm of executive action rather than lead our country with inspiration and compromise to solve our most difficult problems. And this is where you can best see the contrast between what's happening in Washington, D.C. and what's happening in New Jersey. Just this last week, the unimaginable happened. We announced in New Jersey that we have signed a roadmap for reform with the teachers union. Yeah. To try to fundamentally change the way our pension and health systems work. Now imagine this. If you can believe it, I've been negotiating with the teachers union for 5 months, quietly, to solve our pension and health benefit problem once and for all. A problem that politicians for decades chose to push off to another day, another year, another generation. Now listen, everybody. If we can work with the teachers union the organization that has been one of my biggest political adversaries. Don't you think that President Obama can do a little bit more than ask Republican leaders out to a round of golf? And that brings me to another lesson from President Reagan's acceptance speech. Tell voters the truth. You see, when you're surrounded by consultants and pollsters, it's easy to convince yourself that you can fool the voters, that you can run in one way and then govern in another. It doesn't work. See, President Obama promised he'd focus like a laser beam on helping Americans find good-paying careers. Instead, he spent his first term taking over the nation's healthcare system and passing an ineffective and bloated stimulus plan. To this day, we are suffering for what the stimulus did and didn't do. And we are unhappy with Obamacare. And by the way, we're still waiting for those good-paying careers for our citizens. Now, on the other hand, if you tell the voters the truth, even if it's a hard truth that they don't want to hear, they'll respect you. And if you know what you're talking about, they'll hear you out. And if they trust you, they'll vote for you. Then they expect you to govern as you ran. Not unusual. So they respect it. Again, it's a whole other story. But that's what I did in New Jersey. As a conservative in a blue state, I went from 48% of the vote in my first election in the freeway race to 61% of the vote in my re-election. That's how you build trust. That's how you build confidence. That's how you bring a country together. Not divide us the way this president has done so profoundly over the last 6 years. Now, we need to tell the people the truth about the depth of our problems and the seriousness of the solutions. When there's a problem, you have to fix it. You can't wait for someone else to do it for you. The penchant of politicians for waiting for someone else to deal with our problems is the reason America is in trouble right now. Our influence as a nation is in decline. We are being challenged by China. We are being embarrassed by Russia. And we seem hapless in the Middle East. Our adversaries no longer fear our resolve. Our allies are no longer confident in us. And perhaps the biggest current example of this is the fact that the relationship between President Obama and the Prime Minister of Israel, our greatest ally and cultural partner, is fractured. It is so broken that Prime Minister Netanyahu was invited by Republican leaders in Congress to address our country about Israel's challenges, their fears, and their hopes for the future. And in response, what has the president done? President Obama and the White House urged Democrats to boycott his speech. That is a national disgrace. What does this disgraceful moment say to our allies and to our enemies around the world? There's a severe price to pay when our president demonstrates openly on the world stage that our relationship with our allies is fractured and that we do not have the ability to quietly influence others' thinking. It is the job of our president, no matter how hard, no matter how frustrating, no matter how challenging it may appear, to be the one to articulate a strategic vision for the world. It is the job of the United States of America to lead, because if we do not, believe me, no one else will. Where we are now is not the path that I want for the future of our country. You see, I want a United States of America that just doesn't talk about exceptionalism, but embodies it. It's not enough just to talk about our potential. We have to fight to achieve our potential. If anybody knows, I know the American people are ready for a fight. And they're ready to be asked to get in that fight. As I've traveled around the country 106,000 miles in the last year, and I've learned one thing. We're much more similar than we are different. It doesn't matter the state or the city, the economic background, the race, or the ethnicity. We want the same things for ourselves, for our families, for our communities, and yes, for our country. We want a good paying career that gives us value in what we do and makes our children proud. We want a life with the ability to put food on the table, spend free time with our family, and send our kids to the best school they can go to. We want to know that when we retire, we can stay close to our children and our grandchildren, that we won't be airplane grandparents. We want a country that is secure, where our freedoms first and foremost are protected, and where we know that government works for us and not the other way around. I want everybody to think about this. Above all, we want to be happy. Now, we shouldn't be surprised that there's only one country in modern times that has as one of its three founding principles the pursuit of happiness. That's our country. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. An extraordinary place. And it brings me to my last point about President Reagan's acceptance speech in 1980. If you want to change our country, if you want to make it better, then we all have to be prepared to fight for it. You all know here in California, Ronald Reagan did not start off as a politician. He never ran for office until he was 55 years old. But when his country needed him, he stepped up to save her freedoms. So what I'm asking you now is for you to step up to the challenge. I'm asking you now to fight for our potential. I'm asking you to fight for our country. You see, most of the great heroes from the early years of the conservative movement are no longer with us. Look around the room, everybody. It's now up to us. There is no one else but us. So some people say I'm a passionate guy. But I get a little loud. And you get a little too anxious for a fight. Why not? But let me be clear about something. I do not fight just for the sake of fighting. I am passionate about the people of my state, about their future, and about whether or not I can make their lives a little bit better than they were yesterday. I'm not going to fight every fight, everybody. But you can take this to the bank. I will fight the fights that are worth fighting for my state and our country. In New Jersey has led us to veto 5 income tax increases, to balance 5 budgets in a row without higher taxes, to cut taxes for business to create 150,000 new jobs, to reform teacher tenure for the first time in 100 years, to reform and continue to negotiate for more reform of a bloated and broken pension and benefit system, and to restore and rebuild my state after the second worst natural disaster in American history. All in a blue state, all as a proud conservative Republican. So, see, I'm passionate about my beliefs, about my principles, and about the people I go to work for every day. Guilty as charged. Guilty as charged. Because that's my job, everybody. Because even if it seems like we may not get it done, that's not an excuse to give up and not to try at all. As the executive, your job is to lead, to pursue every option available, to see if you can do what government does when it's at its best, to make the impossible possible. There's no other choice. Here's some advice from a guy from New Jersey. Don't be afraid. There are always going to be people that tell us that the country isn't ready for conservatism, that the glory days of America are in the past, that you have to go along whatever the policies that the media or big donors in the party would like you to follow. I can promise you that over the next few months you will see article after article arguing that our party can't afford a long nomination ballot. And we need to pick a nominee as soon as possible. That we have to unite behind whichever candidate appears to have the most money, presidential endorsements or the best press coverage. But I want you to remember, George H.W. Bush fought Ronald Reagan for that nomination until May of 1980. Hillary Clinton fought Barack Obama until June of 2008, mere months before the general election. Take a deep breath, everybody. We are 21 months away from electing our next president. And people like you all over this country. Not by the pollsters and the pundits. Not by the talking heads on TV or the focus groups in some shopping mall. By you. Not by the donors or, God forbid, the media in New York or Washington, D.C. It's our party. It's our movement. It's our country. Don't be afraid to trust yourself with power. Don't be afraid to seek a leader who will listen to you and will tell you the truth in return. For 12 years, remember this now, Republicans were told that Ronald Reagan was too old. He was too controversial. He was too conservative to be president of the United States. None of it was correct. But you know the only reason we know? The only reason we now know that is because Reagan's supporters trusted themselves. They trusted their country. And they refused to take advice from people who did not have their best interests at heart. At Ronald Reagan's first inaugural, after being sworn in as governor of this great state, he said the following, quote, "The path we will chart is not an easy one. It demands much of those chosen to govern, but also from those who did the choosing. And let there be no mistake about this. We have come to a crossroad, a time of decision, and the path we follow turns away from any idea that government and those who serve it are omnipotent. It is a path impossible to follow unless we have faith in the collective wisdom and genius of the people. Along this path, government will lead, but not rule. Listen, but not lecture." Extraordinary words. So how about this? How about we do the same thing today? Let's pledge today to each other to keep fighting for our country. How about we demand leaders who don't pander